Hey everybody, Dave Rollins here. So today's video is the setting for flash photography that you must know, which is flash sync speed. And that's the maximum speed at which your camera will synchronize with your flash. And I'm not going to dive into high-speed sync here or hypersync, any of those things. I'm talking about true flash sync speed. So the fastest that your camera can open the shutter, synchronize the flash, and close the shutter. Shutters kind of fall into two categories. There'll be leaf shutters and focal plane shutters, just commonly. A focal plane shutter will either travel vertically like this, or horizontally like this to time out your exposure, whereas a leaf shutter has leaves that open round like that and close back down. You'll see in this example here. Now what we need to know if we're working with a focal plane shutter is the fastest speed at which our shutter can open and synchronize the flash before the shutter curtain closes. Otherwise we end up with banding. In a horizontal shutter, the banding would come this way. In a vertical shutter, it will come this way. So you'll see in these examples here, that black bar starts creeping up from the bottom until our exposure isn't even happening from the flash. My Canon 6D that I am using to show the examples here, the maximum flash sync is 1/180th of a second. So you'll see here, the whole exposure is illuminated properly. But now as I move to 250th, 500th, and so on, you'll notice that that black bar starts really creeping into the image. Now there's two equations kind of happening here. We've got our shutter speed and we've got our aperture and our ISO. I guess three, our exposure triangle. But when speaking of flash photography, your ambient light is controlled by your shutter speed and your actual flash exposure is controlled by your aperture and your ISO or film speed. So in these examples here, you'll see I am underexposing the ambient light here by 4 stops and our exposure is entirely happening from our flash. Now these aren't the best photos on the planet, but they're just here to serve as an example. And I'm going to move up to 3 stops underexposed on the ambient and take a close look at the shadow areas of the camera and watch how they lift up, especially on the left side of the camera. 2 stops underexposed ambient light, 1 stop underexposed ambient light, the same ambient and flash exposure. And now as we get to the ambient exposure being 1 stop over, our flash is really only acting as a fill light. Creatively, we can use the shutter speed to lower our ambient light and have more focus in with the flash. You'll see in some of these examples the ways in which I've used the flash to change the environment in many ways by creating more dramatic lighting, using the flash to overpower the ambient light by either a little amount or a lot. In the next video, we'll go over what's called dragging the shutter, which is using a slow shutter speed and flash so that you have a sharp subject, but you can have a blurry environment to the photo. So thank you to everybody who tuned in and who supported my work. And a quick plug, I've got 38 misprints of my book entitled Send It. So if you want to support my channel, support what I do, check out the link in the bio and go grab yourself a copy. Alright, so stay tuned for more videos. Ha-cha!